Picture this. You're in a relationship where the other person claims to love you deeply, but they're never around when you need them. They don't text back. They don't show up to important events, and when you're going through hell, they're mysteriously absent. You'd probably call that person toxic, right? Yet billions of people worship a God who does exactly this. But what if I told you that a 16th century political mastermind already figured out why this happens? And what if the answer isn't what you think? See, most people assume God's hiddenness is either cruelty or evidence that God doesn't exist at all. But Niccolò Machiavelli, the man who wrote the playbook on power, would tell you something completely different. He'd say you're looking at this all wrong. Today, I'm going to share with you Machiavelli's most controversial secret about divine power. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the smartest move God ever made was staying hidden. Here's something Machiavelli understood that most people miss. Familiarity breeds contempt. And this isn't just some cute saying. It's one of the most brutal truths about human psychology. Think about it. Remember when you first started dating someone? They were mysterious, exciting, every text message gave you butterflies. But what happens after you move in together? Suddenly you know exactly how they brush their teeth. You've seen them in their worst moments, and somehow, the magic fades. Machiavelli observed this with kings and leaders, the monarchs who tried to be one of the people, who made themselves too accessible, too familiar. They lost their power. But the ones who maintained distance, who appeared only at strategic moments, they commanded reverence for centuries. Now, apply this to God. Imagine if God showed up every morning in your kitchen, making small talk while you drink your coffee. Hey, how's work going? Oh, by the way, I'm omnipotent. How long before you'd start taking that for granted? How long before you'd be rolling your eyes at divine wisdom? The brutal truth is, we don't value what's always available. Machiavelli knew that mystery preserves authority. The moment you fully understand someone, you start to see their flaws. You start to question them. You start to think you could do better. But a hidden God? A God who operates through signs, through feelings you can't quite explain, through coincidences that might be miracles. That God remains fascinating. That God keeps you guessing. That God maintains the one thing every relationship needs to survive: mystery. Here's where it gets really interesting. Machiavelli understood something that modern psychology has now proven. Uncertainty doesn't weaken relationships, it strengthens them. There's this thing called intermittent reinforcement. It's the strongest form of behavioral conditioning we know. Slot machines use it, dating apps use it, and according to Machiavellian logic, God uses it too. Think about it. If every prayer was answered immediately and obviously, what would happen to faith? It would disappear. Because faith, by definition, requires uncertainty. The moment you know something beyond doubt, you don't need faith anymore. But here's the secret sauce. People are most engaged when they're not sure what's coming next. That person who texts you back immediately every time, you probably don't think about them much. But the one who sometimes responds in 5 minutes, sometimes 5 hours, they live rent-free in your head. A visible God would be like the person who always texts back immediately. Reliable, sure, but also boring, predictable. A God you could schedule appointments with would become a cosmic customer service representative. But a hidden God? A God who works in mysterious ways. That's a God who keeps you actively searching, actively wondering, actively engaged. And engagement, my friend, is the foundation of any lasting relationship. Now, here's where Machiavelli's insight gets truly profound. He understood that true character is revealed only when people think no one is watching. A visible God would contaminate every human action. Every kindness would be performed for divine approval. Every moral choice would be tainted by the knowledge that the cosmic judge is taking notes. People would be good, sure, but would it be real goodness? Machiavelli was obsessed with authenticity and leadership. He wanted to know who people really were, not who they pretended to be. And the only way to discover someone's true nature is to observe them when they think they're unobserved. A hidden God creates the perfect laboratory for authentic human behavior. When you help someone and you're not sure if God is watching, that help comes from your genuine character. When you choose honesty in a situation where you could lie and get away with it, that honesty is real. Think about your own life. The person you are when you think no one is watching, that's the real you. The person you are when you know someone important is observing, that's performance. God's hiddenness strips away the performance and reveals the truth. Here's something most people never consider. What if God's absence isn't abandonment, it's strategy? Machiavelli wrote extensively about the power of strategic withdrawal. Sometimes the strongest move a leader can make is to step back and let others prove themselves. Sometimes love means giving space. Sometimes strength is shown through restraint. Think about the most influential people in your life. Were they the ones who were always hovering, always present, always solving your problems? Or were they the ones who showed up at crucial moments, gave you wisdom, and then trusted you to figure things out? A constantly present God would create spiritual dependency. Like a helicopter parent, divine micromanagement would prevent human growth. But a strategically hidden God forces humanity to develop its own moral muscles, its own wisdom, its own strength. And here's the kicker. The absence makes the presence more meaningful. When someone who's usually busy makes time for you, it feels special. When someone who rarely gives compliments tells you they're proud of you, it carries weight. When a hidden God reveals himself through a moment of clarity, an answered prayer, a perfectly timed coincidence, it's not just divine intervention, it's a gift that feels earned.
Machiavelli understood something else. Sometimes love requires distance. There's this beautiful paradox in relationships where caring for someone means staying away from them. The recovering addict whose friends stop enabling them. The adult child whose parents refuse to keep bailing them out. The lover who won't chase someone who needs to find themselves. What if God's hiddenness is protection, not just for us, but for the relationship itself? Think about what direct divine presence would actually mean. We're talking about encountering infinite power, infinite knowledge, infinite love. Would your mind even survive that? Would your free will remain intact? Would you still be you? Maybe God stays hidden for the same reason you don't stare directly at the sun. Not because the sun doesn't want to be seen, but because you're not equipped to handle that level of intensity. And maybe, just maybe, God loves you enough to protect you from a truth that would destroy you. Here's what's wild. Machiavelli's insights about divine hiddenness perfectly explain modern power dynamics. The most successful leaders often maintain strategic mystery. They don't share every thought, respond to every message, or make themselves constantly available. They understand that scarcity creates value. The most compelling brands don't tell you everything about their products. They hint, they suggest, they let you discover. The most attractive people aren't the ones posting every detail of their lives on social media. They're the ones who maintain some mystery, who leave you wanting to know more. Even in dating, the person who's a little unpredictable, who doesn't always be available, who maintains some independence, they're usually the ones who keep relationships exciting for decades. We've somehow decided that God should operate by different rules, that divine love should look like constant availability, immediate responses, obvious interventions. But what if divine love is sophisticated enough to use the same psychological principles that make all our other relationships work?
Here's what Machiavelli would say about our demand for a visible God. We don't actually want what we think we want. We say we want proof, but proof would eliminate faith. And faith is what makes the relationship meaningful. We say we want constant divine presence, but constant presence would make us take God for granted. We say we want all our prayers answered immediately, but that would turn God into a cosmic vending machine instead of a divine being worthy of worship. We say we want God to solve all our problems, but that would prevent us from growing into the people we're meant to become. The uncomfortable truth is that a visible, constantly available God would give us exactly what we ask for, and we'd hate it. Because what we're really asking for isn't divine relationship. We're asking for divine servitude. Machiavelli understood that real power never begs for recognition. Real love doesn't need constant validation, and real wisdom knows when to remain silent. So here's Machiavelli's secret about why God stays hidden. Because hiddenness is the ultimate expression of confident love. Think about the people in your life who you respect most. Are they the ones constantly seeking your approval, always checking in, always making themselves available? Or are they the ones who trust the relationship enough to give you space, who care about you enough to let you make your own choices, who love you enough to let you grow? God's hiddenness isn't abandonment, it's trust. Trust that you can handle uncertainty. Trust that you can make good choices without micromanagement. Trust that you can find meaning in the search itself, not just in the answers. And maybe, just maybe, God is hidden because God knows something we don't, that the most beautiful relationships aren't built on certainty, but on faith. Not on dependence, but on interdependence. Not on constant presence, but on meaningful connection. The God who stays hidden isn't the God who doesn't care. It's the God who cares enough to let you become who you're meant to be, even if that means wondering, searching, and sometimes feeling alone. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't your presence, it's your trust that they don't need you to be there every second for the relationship to be real.
So here's your choice. You can keep demanding that God show up on your terms, meet your timeline, prove divine existence through your preferred methods. You can keep treating divine hiddenness as a problem to be solved, or you can start seeing it for what Machiavelli would recognize it as: the most sophisticated form of relationship you've ever been offered. A relationship that respects your autonomy while offering guidance, that provides meaning without removing mystery, that offers love without demanding dependence. A relationship with someone powerful enough to force your belief, but wise enough to let you choose it. Someone present enough to be found by those who seek, but hidden enough to preserve the beauty of the search. The question isn't why God stays hidden. The question is, are you mature enough to appreciate a love that's confident enough to remain mysterious? Because once you understand the strategy behind the hiddenness, you start to realize you're not in a relationship with an absent God. You're in a relationship with a God who's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly the kind of God worth believing in.
The choice, as always, is yours.